She caught him, red-handed. But what he didn't know was, she wasn't the only one playing this game. The truth he never saw coming? It's about to rip everything apart. You'll never guess who's actually been lying to whom. I didn't suspect a thing at first. Not when Ginny started staying late at work. Not when she'd take longer lunches or come home with that strange look I couldn't place. But something in my gut told me something wasn't right. Let me back up. My name's Mark, and I've been married to Ginny for 10 years. We met in college, built a life together, friends, a home, everything. Sure, there were rough patches. Every marriage has them, right? But we always made it through. The first sign? Her phone. It wasn't unusual for her to be on it, but now it was different. She'd flip it over when I walked by, or sometimes vanish into the bathroom with it, her face glued to the screen. I could feel the distance between us, even if I couldn't put it into words. And then there was the late work schedule. I've got to meet with clients, she'd say. There's a last-minute presentation. But after a while, it felt like an excuse. Why did these meetings always seem to run late? And why was she getting dressed up so much more? Tight dresses, heavy perfume. I didn't want to overthink it, but the changes were too obvious to ignore. The tipping point came last Tuesday. It was the third time that week she came home late, an hour after I'd finished dinner alone. The house felt cold, too quiet. I could hear the TV, but I wasn't watching it. I was wondering where she was, who she was with. When she finally walked in, she had that tight smile on her face, like everything was fine. Crazy day at work, she said. Had to meet with a new client. But it didn't add up. The way she spoke, the way she moved, something was off. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her messages. I found text threads with a name I didn't recognize. And it wasn't work-related. There was no denying it. There was someone else. The next night, she came home late again. She mentioned him, her colleague, just like she always did, but now it sounded different, warmer. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just the late nights, the strange texts. It was him. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the only one who had changed. But the real question was, who was he? I couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was this guy? I had to know. But the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. Was I overreacting? Maybe. Maybe not. But the thought of Ginny being with someone else was eating me alive. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. It felt wrong, like I was prying into something I wasn't meant to see. So, I kept it to myself, trying to act normal. But it was hard. Every little thing she did after that felt like a clue, a hint I was too afraid to follow. The next few days were torture. I watched her, not in an obvious way, but I couldn't help it. She was more distracted than ever. And her phone was always with her. Always. When she left for work in the morning, it was the first thing she grabbed. When she got home, she'd retreat to the bathroom with it. What was she doing in there? One morning, she went out for a walk to clear her head. It was a chilly day, but she insisted on going alone. Normally, she'd ask me to come with her, but not this time. I had a feeling she didn't want me around. And that's when I noticed it, the subtle change in her. The way she walked, the way she carried herself. There was something different. She looked lighter, happier. The tension between us grew. Every time we spoke, I felt this invisible wall between us. Small talk. Empty words. Her eyes no longer held the warmth they used to, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was keeping secrets from me. Then, one night, it happened. She came home later than usual, and I was getting ready to go to bed. She barely said hello, just dropped her keys on the counter and disappeared into the bathroom. That was the moment I snapped. I had to know the truth. I couldn't live like this anymore. I waited until she was settled in. Then, under the cover of darkness, I grabbed her phone. It was risky, but I had no other choice. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I hoped that whatever it was would tell me the story I needed to hear. As I scrolled through the messages, my heart started to race. There it was again, his name. It wasn't just casual. It was intimate. They were talking about things that should have only been shared between us. My stomach twisted as I realized that my worst fear was true. She wasn't just spending time with him at work. She was with him. And now, I had no choice but to confront her. But how do you confront the person you love when the truth might shatter everything? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, the words from her messages replaying over and over. It was undeniable now. Ginny was having an affair. My chest felt tight, my thoughts scattered. I had trusted her completely, and yet here I was, faced with a betrayal I never saw coming. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't ignore this any longer. But how do you confront the person you love, knowing it could shatter everything? Jenny woke up like it was any other day, smiling as she walked into the kitchen. "Good morning, babe," she said, her voice light, like nothing was wrong. But I knew. Who is he? The words came out before I could stop them. My voice was steady, but my heart was anything but. "The guy you've been texting. Who is he?" Jenny froze. The color drained from her face, and I saw the panic in her eyes. But it quickly turned to defensiveness. "You've been looking through my phone?" she asked, her tone sharp. "That's what this is about." I couldn't look away. I had to. I saw everything. She stepped back, shaking her head. "Mark, I can't believe you don't trust me after everything we've been through." "Trust you?" The bitterness crept in. "After what I saw? You've been lying to me, Jenny, for who knows how long." Her face twisted, guilt and anger fighting for control. She didn't speak. She couldn't. "Who is he?" I pressed again, the desperation in my voice. "What does he mean to you?" She stared at the floor, tears brimming in her eyes. But still, she didn't answer. The silence was suffocating. Every moment stretched on forever. I waited, hoping for something, an apology, an explanation. But it never came. The truth hung in the air, thick with unspoken words. This wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything that had led us here. And as I stood there, staring at her, I realized that finding the truth might break me. But I had to know. Jenny didn't answer. She just stood there, her hands trembling slightly at her sides, her face a mixture of guilt and defiance. The silence between us was deafening. It was as if the air had thickened, every word I wanted to say caught in my throat. She wasn't ready to speak, and I wasn't sure I was ready to hear whatever came next. "Jenny," I started, my voice quieter now, a plea more than a question. "You can't keep doing this." She still didn't say anything. Her eyes were trained on the floor, and the only sound was her shaky breath. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but something stopped me. Was it the years of love we shared? The years of trust that had somehow crumbled overnight? Or maybe it was the pain, the shock, that made it impossible for me to form the right words. "I never thought this would happen," I said finally, my voice cracking. "You said you loved me. We made vows. You promised." She wiped her eyes quickly, but still, she didn't speak. I could see the guilt in her expression, but it wasn't enough to make her admit what she'd done. The longer she stayed silent, the angrier I became, not just at her, but at myself. How had I been so blind? I turned away, pacing the kitchen, trying to hold myself together. "Who is he, Jenny? Why didn't you just tell me? Was I that easy to forget?" "Mark, please," she finally spoke, but her voice was weak, hesitant. It felt like she was trying to find the words, but couldn't. "I never wanted to hurt you." I stopped pacing and turned back toward her. "Then why did you? Why him?" Jenny seemed to shrink under my gaze, and for a moment, I thought she might finally tell me everything. But instead, she opened her mouth and closed it again, like she was battling with herself. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't the answer I needed, but it was the truth she was ready to give. And for some reason, that made it worse. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the realization that the woman I had loved so deeply was slipping away, piece by piece, right before my eyes. This wasn't just an affair, it was the death of everything we had built. And as I stood there, waiting for her to say the one thing that might make this all make sense, I knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning of the end. The silence between us lingered, stretching out like an uncomfortable pause in a conversation you never wanted to have. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I had never imagined that I would be here, facing the woman I loved, asking her for the truth, and getting nothing in return. Jenny took a deep breath, as though gathering the strength to say something, but the words never came. It was maddening. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she was silent, or the way she seemed almost relieved that I had uncovered the truth. I didn't know how to deal with the hurt, the betrayal, the confusion swirling in my mind. "I don't even know where to start," she whispered, finally lifting her eyes to meet mine. There was something in her gaze that made my blood run cold. It wasn't guilt. It was something else, something distant, as if she was already emotionally checked out. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream, to demand every detail, to know when it all started and how long it had been going on. But a part of me was afraid that knowing the full story would only crush me more. "You don't have to tell me," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to stay composed. "I already know enough." Her face twisted as though my words stung, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to defend herself, to explain, but she couldn't find the words. I didn't want an explanation anymore. I wanted answers. I wanted to know if the person she had become was someone I even recognized. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Jenny said, her voice breaking as she looked at me. "It was just, we drifted, and then it just happened. I never meant to hurt you. I swear." Her words hit me like a slap in the face, each one another layer of pain I couldn't escape. "So it was just something that happened, huh?" I said bitterly, my chest tightening. "That's it? You didn't think about the vows we made? The life we built together?" "I thought about it," she said softly, "but I didn't know how to fix it. I thought it was too late." Too late. The words echoed in my mind, and I felt something inside me snap. She thought it was too late? Too late to save us? Too late to even try? I stepped back, shaking my head. "Too late? You made a choice, Jenny. You chose him." The coldness between us felt like it was suffocating me. She was right there, yet so far away. And I realized, in that moment, that nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't know how to fix this, or even if I wanted to. I looked at her one last time. "I need some space," I said, my voice hoarse. "I need to think." And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing there, the woman I once knew, now a stranger to me. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood there for a moment, breathing in the cool air, trying to shake the weight of what had just happened. My mind was a blur. I couldn't process what I'd just heard. Too late. Those words kept echoing in my mind, louder than anything else. I needed to get away from the house, from her. I couldn't stand the thought of being there, trapped with the silence that had settled between us. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the night, not really knowing where I was going, just needing to be somewhere, anywhere, that wasn't home. The cool breeze hit my face as I walked aimlessly, my footsteps echoing in the empty street. I should have been angry. Hell, I was angry. But the anger felt distant, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. It didn't feel real. The pain was sharp, but the disbelief was sharper. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that Jenny, the woman I trusted, the woman I had built my life with, had just casually destroyed everything. I thought back to the little things, her late nights, her guarded phone, her smile that had once been warm, now distant. I had seen the signs, hadn't I? They were there, buried under layers of excuses, but I ignored them, because I didn't want to believe that she could do this to me, to us. It wasn't just the affair, it was everything that came with it. The years of trust shattered. The realization that I had been living in a lie. The realization that maybe, deep down, I had known all along but refused to face it. I pulled my phone from my pocket, staring at the screen for a few seconds. I thought about calling someone, my best friend, maybe, or my brother, but I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain something like this? How do you tell someone that the woman you've loved for a decade has been with someone else? I slid the phone back into my pocket and kept walking, the dark streets stretching out before me. I wasn't sure where I was going, or even what I was hoping for. I just knew that I couldn't go back home yet. Not until I figured out what to do next. The truth had torn through me, leaving nothing but raw emotion in its wake. And as much as I wanted to scream, to confront her again, to demand every answer, I knew it wasn't the time. The pieces were still falling into place, and I needed space to figure out how to put them back together, if I could at all. Because nothing would ever be the same. I stayed out for hours, walking the streets like a ghost, not really seeing where I was going. I needed time. Time to breathe, time to think, time to figure out what came next. But the more I walked, the more the questions piled up, each one more painful than the last. Why him? Why now? I was angry. So angry. But it was an anger without direction, like a storm inside me, swirling around but never settling. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I just kept walking, my thoughts spiraling. By the time I returned home, it was late, and the house was eerily quiet. The front door creaked when I opened it, and the sound made my stomach churn. It felt like stepping into a different world, one that wasn't mine anymore. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Maybe some sign that things could go back to how they were, or some magical moment where everything made sense. But there was nothing. Just the cold emptiness of the place that had once been our home. Jenny was in the living room, sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She hadn't been asleep when I left, and she hadn't gone anywhere. She just waited, like she knew that I would come back eventually. She looked up when I stepped inside, and for a moment, neither of us moved. She seemed to be waiting for me to say something, but what could I say? What do you say to the person who just broke your heart? I'm sorry, Mark, she whispered, her voice barely audible, as though she was afraid that even her words would drive me away. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't answer. What was there to say? It wasn't just about the affair. It was everything that had led to this moment. The way she had pulled away from me, the lies, the secrecy. The betrayal ran so deep that I wasn't sure I even knew who she was anymore. Jenny stood up and took a step toward me, but I instinctively backed away. I couldn't let her touch me, not now. Not until I figured out what I was supposed to do with all of this. I don't know what to say, she said, her voice breaking. I never meant for it to happen like this. I don't know how we got here. The words hung in the air, and I felt a coldness creep into my bones. I don't know how we got here. The truth was, I didn't either. I turned away from her, the weight of it all crashing down on me. I didn't want to hear her explanations anymore. I just needed to breathe, to think. I need some time, I said, my voice flat. We both do. And just like that, I walked away again, leaving her behind. The house felt colder with every step, and as I closed the door behind me, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Not for us. Not for me. The days that followed felt like I was living in some kind of limbo. The world outside seemed to carry on as usual, but inside me, everything was falling apart. I went to work, ate meals by myself, and kept up the appearance of a normal life. But inside, I was unraveling. I didn't want to be home. The thought of walking back into that house, where every room felt like a reminder of everything I had lost, made me sick. So I spent more time at the office, pretending to focus on work when all I could think about was Jenny and the mess we were in. I found myself avoiding her calls, leaving texts unanswered. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd hesitate, knowing it was her, knowing it was more of the same empty apologies. The words she had spoken before echoed in my mind. I never meant for this to happen. But that wasn't enough anymore. Why did it happen? She was still there when I came home late, still waiting for me to come to my senses. I knew she was, but I didn't have the answers. I couldn't just forgive her and go back to what we were. Not after everything. A week went by, and every night, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling. There was no sound but the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall, and I felt the weight of the silence between us press in. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket and headed out again, walking aimlessly, not caring where I went. I found myself back at the same park, the same bench I'd sat on days earlier. The cold air bit at my skin, but I barely noticed it. I needed distance, space, something to clear my mind. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching people walk by in the distance, each of them with their own lives, their own dramas. None of them had the weight I carried in my chest. I kept thinking about the affair. Not just the physical betrayal, but everything else that led to it. What had gone wrong between us? Where had we stopped being a team? And more importantly, why had I ignored the signs? I knew the answer. I hadn't wanted to believe it. It was easier to look away, to tell myself everything would be fine, to hold on to the version of us I wanted rather than facing the reality that something was broken. And now here we were. I wasn't sure if we could fix it, or if I even wanted to. As I stood up and walked back home, I realized that the hardest part wasn't knowing the truth, it was what I did with it. And that, I wasn't sure of yet. The silence between Jenny and me was suffocating. Days turned into weeks, and everything felt like an act. I kept pretending things were fine, but deep down, I knew they weren't. I wasn't the man I used to be, and neither was she. We were drifting in opposite directions, both stuck in this quiet, painful standoff. I spent more time at work, took longer walks, anything to avoid being home. I told myself it was space to figure things out, but the truth was, I was running from what had happened. I didn't want to face the hurt, the anger, the betrayal. I didn't want to face her, but the avoidance couldn't go on forever. I couldn't keep pretending. I needed answers, I needed closure, and most of all, I needed to know what we were now, or if we were anything at all. It was late Thursday night when I knew I couldn't delay it anymore. I walked back into the house, expecting the usual silence, But Ginny was there, waiting. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She'd been waiting for me, again. I stood in the doorway, watching her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice quiet but firm. She looked up, her face filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I knew what she was expecting, more apologies, more quiet attempts to repair what was already broken. But I couldn't offer that anymore. "I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice growing steadier. "We're broken, Jenny. I don't know if there's anything left to fix." The words hit her hard, and she froze, not knowing how to respond. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She looked lost, like she didn't know where to go from here. "I can't live like this," I continued. "We're not the same anymore, and I'm not sure we ever will be." Her face crumpled, and she reached out, as if she could hold me together with her touch. But I stepped back, the distance between us feeling miles wide. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I love you." But love wasn't enough anymore. I had trusted her, and she had shattered that trust. "I know you do," I replied. "But love isn't enough when trust is gone." I turned and walked toward the door. One last look back, she was sitting there, crying, alone. But I had made my decision. I couldn't stay in the wreckage anymore. The next few days felt like I was moving through thick fog. I couldn't escape the weight of everything that had happened, the heaviness of the decision I'd made. I thought walking away would bring some relief, but instead, it just left a hollow space inside me. I had left, but the pain hadn't gone anywhere. I stayed at a friend's place for the first couple of nights, giving myself some time away from the house. Every minute felt like an eternity, and the uncertainty of what came next gnawed at me. I wasn't sure if I had made the right decision, but I knew I couldn't go back to what we were. Not after everything. Ginny reached out every day. Texts, calls, even a few voicemails. The same apologies over and over again. "I love you. Please come home. We can fix this." But I couldn't shake the feeling that those words were just empty promises, the kind of things people say when they don't want to face the truth. The truth was, I wasn't sure we could fix it. I wasn't sure I could forgive her. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses or explanations. She had betrayed me, and I couldn't process it all at once. Every time I tried to talk to her, everything seemed to fall apart again. I spent more time reflecting, not just on the affair, but on our entire relationship. The late nights, the distance between us, the quiet tension that had been building long before I found out about him. Maybe I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. I had been so focused on keeping everything together, on maintaining the life we'd built, that I had missed all the signs. Then, one night, as I sat in my friend's apartment, staring out at the city lights, I felt it. The deep, gnawing emptiness. I had wanted clarity, but now I had it. I had made my decision, but that didn't make it easier. It didn't make the pain any less real. I couldn't just pick up the pieces and move forward as if nothing had happened. Ginny had broken something inside me, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be fixed. And the hardest part? I didn't know if I even wanted it to be. The days bled together. I tried to keep myself busy, but no matter how many distractions I found, my thoughts kept pulling me back to Ginny. It wasn't just the affair, it was everything. The way we drifted, the way she'd pulled away long before I ever knew there was someone else. I felt betrayed on so many levels. Ginny kept texting, calling, leaving messages. Each one felt like another plea, a cry for me to come back, to forgive her. But how could I? The person I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had broken me. And as much as I hated to admit it, I had changed. Something in me had snapped, and I didn't know if I could put it back together. I began to wonder if she was really sorry, or if she just wanted me back to restore her own peace. Was it guilt driving her? Or was it love? I couldn't tell anymore, and that uncertainty made everything harder. It wasn't just her actions, it was my own doubts about everything. About her, about me, about us. After a week of radio silence, I decided to go back to the house. The weight of not knowing where we stood, of being in limbo, was killing me. I couldn't keep hiding away. I had to face it, whatever it was now. When I walked through the door, Ginny was sitting in the living room, waiting for me. She looked different, more fragile somehow. Her eyes were red, and she didn't seem to have the strength to get up when she saw me. She just stared at me like she was waiting for me to make the first move. "Mark," she whispered, her voice soft, as though every word might shatter the silence between us. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please, please don't leave me." I stood in the doorway, my heart heavy. Seeing her like this, the woman who had betrayed me, was like looking at a ghost. I wanted to scream at her, demand why she couldn't have just been honest, but I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, feeling the full weight of my decision pressing down on me. I don't know if I can forgive you, Jenny, I said finally, my voice steady but quiet. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way again. Her face crumpled, but I didn't feel the rush of anger or guilt that I thought would come. Instead, there was just a deep, empty ache. I've lost you, haven't I? She asked, her voice cracking. I don't know, I replied honestly. But I can't make this decision in a moment. I need time to figure out if we can still be anything, if I can still be me with you. And with that, I walked away from her again, leaving her alone in that room, unsure of what the future held. But one thing was clear, I couldn't make the choice yet. I needed time. And the hardest part? I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to go back. The days stretched on, and the decision I had avoided for so long seemed more impossible with each passing hour. Jenny's calls became fewer, her messages less frequent, but the weight of her absence was just as suffocating. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. Each step forward felt like a step away from everything I'd ever known. I kept telling myself I needed space. That time would bring clarity. But the truth was, I was losing myself. I didn't know who I was without her, without the life we had built together. I had tried to fill the void with work, with friends, but nothing seemed to work. At night, when I lay in the silence of my apartment, the loneliness settled in, and I could feel it wrapping around me like a cold, unshakable shroud. There were moments when I missed her, the way she used to laugh, the quiet comfort of being in the same room without needing words. And then there were the moments when I remembered why I was angry, why I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. She had betrayed me, and even if she was sorry, I didn't know if that was enough to heal the wound. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back to the house, unsure of what I was going to do when I got there. The street was dark, and the house loomed in the distance, a place that once felt like home, but now felt foreign. When I stepped inside, Jenny was sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and tired. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The air was thick with tension, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. I've been thinking, I said, my voice hoarse. About us. About everything. Jenny didn't look up, but I saw her shoulders tense. And I don't know if we can fix this, I said, the words coming out more quietly than I intended. I don't know if I can forgive you, Jenny. I don't know if I can go back to who we were. She raised her head slowly, tears in her eyes. Please, Mark. I can't lose you. I'll do anything. Please, just don't leave me. The desperation in her voice hurt more than anything else. I didn't want to break her, but I had already broken myself. I need more time, I said, stepping back. I need to figure out who I am without you. And with that, I walked out, leaving the door open just a crack behind me. I didn't know if I was walking toward the end or a new beginning, but I knew I couldn't stay in the same place, stuck in the mess we had made. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. I hadn't realized how much I had relied on the noise of our life together, the constant hum of her presence, the small conversations, the way we used to fill the space. Now, everything felt hollow. I spent the next few days in a fog. I tried to convince myself that I was doing the right thing, that I needed to focus on me. But the loneliness pressed in like an unseen weight. Every corner of my apartment seemed to echo with the absence of her. I could almost hear the laughter we used to share, the soft murmur of her voice when she'd ask about my day. But it was all gone now, replaced by this suffocating emptiness. Jenny's messages had stopped. For the first time, I found myself wishing she'd reach out again. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I wanted to know that she still cared, that there was still something between us worth saving. But the silence lingered, and I found myself wondering if she had given up on us altogether. One evening, as I was walking home from work, I spotted her car parked outside our old place. I hadn't seen it there in days. Something inside me shifted, a mix of hope and dread, and without thinking, I walked over. I stood there for a moment, hesitating. What was I hoping for? To fix things? To talk? I wasn't sure. But I knocked on the door anyway, the sound of my knuckles against the wood almost too loud in the quiet night. Jenny opened it after a few moments, her face a mixture of surprise and relief. There were bags under her eyes, and her hair was messy. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping. I didn't know if you'd come back, she said softly. her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, the woman I once knew so well, and felt a pang of something I couldn't quite identify. I need answers, Jenny. I can't keep living like this. Her eyes softened, and she stepped aside, silently inviting me in. I hesitated, but followed her into the house. It felt strange to be here, but it also felt like the right thing to do. I don't know where to start, she said, sitting down on the couch and looking up at me. But I know that I've hurt you in ways I can't fix with just words. I sat across from her, my heart heavy. Then show me. Show me you're sorry. Show me that you want to fix this. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence between us. It felt like we were standing on the edge of something. Whether it was a chance at rebuilding or the final end, I didn't know. But I had to decide. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure I could make that decision. I stared at Jenny, sitting there on the couch, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't quite read. She looked small in that moment, vulnerable, broken, but still there. The woman I had spent a decade with, the one I had built a life with, was now so far removed from the person I had once known. It was like watching a familiar face through a fogged-up window, trying to see beyond the distortion, but not sure what was real anymore. She hadn't moved. Neither had I. The weight of everything that had happened hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My chest ached, the pain a constant reminder of how everything had unraveled. I can't fix this with just words, Jenny repeated, her voice soft but steady. I know that. But I need you to understand, Mark. I never meant for any of this to happen. It wasn't supposed to go this way. I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees, my hands gripping the fabric of my jeans. But it did. And now here we are, trying to figure out what's left. If anything is left. Jenny looked down, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. I don't know what to say anymore. I never thought I'd lose you, but I know I have. And I'll never forgive myself for it. The raw pain in her voice hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to feel angry. I should have felt angry, but the anger had worn itself out long ago. Now, there was only this, emptiness. I don't know if I can forgive you, Jenny, I said, the words tasting foreign in my mouth. I don't know if I can go back to what we were. The trust is gone, and I can't just ignore that. She nodded slowly, as if she had been expecting that response. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, or ever, but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. I wasn't thinking, Mark. I got lost. You didn't just get lost, I replied, the sharpness of my voice catching even me off guard. You made a choice, and that choice broke me. Silence hung between us again, but this time it wasn't just the silence of uncertainty. It was the silence of two people who had reached a point where no words could bridge the gap. I don't know what happens next, I said, my voice quieter. But I can't stay here in this limbo. We both need to decide what's next, even if it means letting go. Jenny's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. I could see the weight of my words sinking in, and for the first time, I saw her for what she was in that moment. A person who had lost everything, even if she hadn't fully understood the consequences of her actions. And I realized then that I wasn't sure if I could find my way back to the person I was before. The room felt smaller, the silence heavier. We both sat there, on opposite sides of the space we had once shared, each of us wrapped in our own pain, unsure of what the next step should be. I could feel the weight of the moment settling in, the finality of it, the truth that we could never go back to what we had. I've been thinking about this a lot, Jenny whispered, breaking the silence. I don't want to lose you, Mark. I never did. But I've realized that I can't fix what's broken between us if you don't want to try. Her words hung in the air, and I knew she was right. The thing that had held us together for so long, trust, love, the bond we had built, was shattered. And as much as I wanted to believe that time could heal the wounds, the truth was that some things couldn't be undone. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision press against my chest. Could I forgive her? Could I look at her again and believe in what we had? Could we rebuild something from the ruins of everything she had done? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I could look past the betrayal, the lies, the coldness that had crept into our relationship. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had changed. Maybe we had both grown apart, and the love we once had was no longer enough to hold us together. I don't know if I can forgive you, Jenny, I said finally, my voice steady but filled with a sorrow I couldn't hide. I don't know if I can go back to what we were. I wish I could, but I can't pretend that things are the same when everything's been broken. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, but she didn't argue. She knew. We both knew. The decision had been made. We had reached the end of the road. I think we need to let go, I said quietly, almost to myself. We need to stop pretending that we can fix something that's already fallen apart. Jenny nodded, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs, but I didn't reach out to comfort her. It was over. We both knew it. I stood up, feeling the finality of the moment settle in. As I turned to walk away, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the decision. It wasn't the betrayal. It was the acceptance. The acceptance that sometimes, even when you love someone, it's not enough to hold everything together. And with one last look at the life we had built, I walked out, knowing that it was time to start letting go.